Hey, greetings, everyone. It's Naomi Wolf of Daily Clout and Outspoken. And today's a really special day. I'm kind of proud of what we're doing today, in fact. And what we're doing is that we're recreating a beloved and suppressed herbal remedy for women, which millions of women in the 19th century and early 20th century, especially in the United States, swore by. I've been fascinated with this for a long time. You may know or recall, if you follow my work, that I've already done at least one video about Lydia Pinkham's secret recipe. It's one of the great pharmacological mystery stories that we've cracked today, for the most part, and I'll tell you what I mean. But I was always intrigued by Lydia Pinkham's story because she was one of the very unusual women in the 19th century who became very, very, very successful as an entrepreneur. And not only as an entrepreneur, many women at that time inherited their husbands' businesses or their father's businesses and ran them. But she was one of the first women, if not the first woman, to have her own business. And it actually became a family business. Her sons worked eventually in the family business producing this remedy. But also her own face and name were on the bottle. And it became like this iconic product in the 19th century. So what fascinated me too is that her recipe, and again, it was marketed and everyone understood that it was designed for easing women's problems. Okay, so what are women's problems? Loki always likes to sit on my lap when I do a podcast. Do you want to come up here? Do you want to just give me those adorable eyes? Okay, Loki, make up your mind. The story of the origin of Lydia Pinkham's remedy is that she learned the recipe or the ingredients from Native American women, and that the herbs and roots, essentially, and sticks, basically, that are part of this top secret recipe were passed down for centuries, perhaps millennia, we'll never know, from woman to woman, mother to daughter, among Native American women in Native American traditional medicine in America. So that's really interesting. That's a real kind of, I don't know, Pocahontas or, First Thanksgiving kind of story in which the riches and knowledge of the people who were here when Europeans came to the United States or to America, to this continent, were kind of gifted some knowledge, whether it's knowledge of planting and the story of the first Thanksgiving, or knowledge of the topography of the West, as in the Pocahontas story, the westward expansion that followed that pioneering effort of Pocahontas. I'm sorry, I've got that wrong. Pocahontas was the colonists. You know what? I'm going to start all over because it's been a long day and I'm getting my mythologies wrong. Lewis and Clark, Sacagawea. I beg your pardon, how embarrassing. It was Sacagawea, which used to be pronounced Sacagawea when I was growing up. Point is, Pocahontas is also a gift story, I suppose, but the gift was saving the life of the European explorer who was about to be murdered by her father, the chieftain. Anyway, point is, the Lydia Pinkham recipe was a gift from Native American women to this European woman. And I guess the other thing that's really striking is there were a lot of what became known as quack remedies in the 19th century. There was very little regulation in most of the 19th century of folk remedies, or patent remedies, they were also called. And so these hucksters very often would go from town to town with a spiel. They were showmen, and they would sell their tonics or their treatments or their electrical belts or whatever thing they were marketing. And very often the remedies were really useless, or did not give results. But what was well known for decades and decades was that Lydia Pinkham's tonic did ease the miseries of various aspects of being female biologically for millions of women. Women loved the remedy. And the other thing that I find very moving as a feminist is that Lydia Pinkham promised always to answer letters she received from women and to answer them in confidence. And so women would write to her about their menstrual cramps or excessive bleeding, or about their difficulty getting pregnant, or how to induce an abortion. I'm sure those letters are there because, abortion wasn't even criminalized systematically until fairly late in the 19th century in America. But even so, women, there have always been women desperate to end a pregnancy. I'm not making a judgment. I'm just saying, I'm sure there were inquiries about that. But also menopausal symptoms, hot flashes, mood swings, night sweats, all the, all of the, Brian's giving me a look, all the miserable things women go through. The tonic is not designed for pregnancy. And so I just really want to tell everyone, I'm not a medical doctor. I say that every time I post about physical subjects, not a medical doctor, DPhil in English literature, no medical degree, no scientific degree whatsoever. However, I'm bringing you real research about these herbs. And yet I really want to stress this remedy is for cramping, it's for, excessive bleeding, it's for regulating bleeding, it's for hormonal regulation, mood swings, menopausal symptoms, in uterine problems, right? A lot of women, as you know, with the aftermath of the mRNA injection, suffer from uterine problems, specifically thinning of the uterine lining, or instability of the uterine lining. It's really gross, and I don't need to go into it too deeply, but clotting, hemorrhaging, shedding even of the uterine lining. So it's very important to take care of the uterus, the uterine lining. And I think it's very interesting. And this is a serious problem we have now. I've been worried about the menstrual side effects of the mRNA injection since 2021, when I was canceled and my life turned upside down for warning about it. But it is here, it's real. And, there's been a dramatic drop in fertility in the vaccinated world. And I don't need to recap evidence that I've brought you, for a couple of years now from the Pfizer papers, but basically the mRNA injection works to dial down fertility by disrupting menses dramatically and destabilizing the uterus, and also blocking the fallopian tubes. So for all of these reasons, I think it's really, really timely to bring back knowledge of Lydia Pinkham's remedy. And I just want to really stress again, you can experiment with this tea. I'm not making any claims for it that the FDA will arrest me for, except that it's historically very beloved, right? As a student of 19th century literature, memoir, women's issues, I can tell you with great confidence that it was beloved in the 19th century for uterine problems of all kinds. But if you are pregnant, don't experiment with this. Or if you're trying to get pregnant, don't experiment with this, because you may be pregnant, without knowing it. However, what I find really, really interesting is that the thing the name it had is a uterine tonic. And that's so interesting to me because we no longer have that product, right? Like, what is a uterine tonic? You don't go to CVS and, look in the aisles of weird douches, and find a section called uterine tonics. You don't even go to health food stores and find a uterine tonic section. But in the 19th century, when women really suffered from frequent childbearing and excessive lacing of the corsets, which also wasn't good for their uterine health, as it turns out, horrible damage in childbirth, they really had a regular recourse to something called a uterine tonic. And the whole idea of a tonic also we no longer have. And I've always found it fascinating. People used to take spring tonics and, winter tonics. And a tonic was just what it sounds like, right? To tone. It was an overall holistic support for the function of your whole system. And that's such a, integrative idea, right? Your whole, like your uterus is tired, it needs a tonic, right? It's done its thing, it needs a nap, and it needs to kind of get a little support, a little energizing substances going through it. We really no longer have that idea in Western medicine at all, or that your whole, what they used to call your whole system, your whole bodily set of functions needs a tonic because you're worn out or because you've been through a hard winter or whatever. But in the 19th century, they really did think along these lines. I personally think it's kind of useful because we aren't what Western medicine wants us to believe we are. Here's your kidney, here's your liver, here are your lungs. They have nothing to do with each other. No, we're an integrated system. And so it does make sense to tone the system sometimes. But anyway, this was a uterine tonic and a women's tonic for women's problems. Now let's get to what's in it. I'm going to fast forward a little. Again, I addressed this a little bit in my last video about Lydia Pinkham, but it's really worth repeating. The actual original ingredients have been suppressed. So interesting, right? Why would you do that? The actual effective, powerful ingredients have been suppressed and new ingredients have been substituted by Big Pharma. Lydia Pinkham's remedy is still sold today. In the bodegas down the street, I can buy it. It's not the same remedy that Lydia Pinkham originally created that was so effective, that had all these millions of women writing to her saying, thank you, thank you. So this really interests me because Lydia Pinkham's company was bought by a pharmaceutical company in the 1960s. And kind of Big Pharma snatched it up. And what's also really interesting to me is that they immediately changed the recipe of the tonic. And they took out some key herbs. And they put in other things that are kind of unrelated to the original list of ingredients. Why? They don't explain. Nothing explains. Nothing online that I've read explains. There is a biography of Lydia Pinkham I'll have to read. Maybe they explain why the recipe was changed, but bottom line is that incredibly successful recipe was changed. So today I'm going to recreate, not in a tonic form, because that involves things like maceration in alcohol, which I'm not an herbalist, I'm not good at. I'm going to do a simpler version, which is just a tea form, right? You're just going to steep it. But I recreated almost all of the original recipe. All right. And as I go through, and I'm going to put the herbs in this bowl, and then I'm going to mix them up together, and then I'm going to just put them here so I can give them to a young lady who's suffering from painful menstrual cramping, excessive bleeding, the things, so many of our young ladies are suffering from. And so here we go. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the herbs as I go along. So modern formulations, it's interesting. AI doesn't give you the full original 19th century formula, but it included black cohosh, life root, unicorn root, pleurisy root, and fenugreek seed. Modern formulations include a blend of herbs, vitamins, and minerals, and the modern version has black cohosh root. It also has motherwort leaf, pleurisy root, gentian root, Jamaican dogwood bark, dandelion root, and licorice root. They add also vitamin C, vitamin E, iron, and calcium. And the original formula, they point out, was used for menstrual and menopausal symptoms with ingredients like black cohosh for cramping and unicorn root for reproductive health. All right, so that's a summary of the original ingredients and then the modernized ingredients. So I'm going to start with Jamaican dogwood. All right, let's find it here. Where is my Jamaican? Here it is. I don't know if you can see that. This is Jamaican dogwood. I can't. There we go. I'm going to hold this up. And this is 1.48 ounces, 42 grams. It's also called fish fuddle. And it's the cut bark or root. Its origin is Jamaica. And I just ordered this. You know, there are a number of platforms I really like for ordering herbs. Really not expensive. I mean, I've got a whole pantry full of herbs. It must have cost between $1 and $150. And it's lasts for years and years and years. But this is what it looks like. So it's just woody, barky. It smells, what does it smell like? It kind of reminds me of something. It's almost minty smelling. And you can hear the woody, barky sound of it. You know, it's not a leaf, really. It really is a bark. It's a wood. It's Jamaican dogwood. All right, so let's find out about Jamaican dogwood. So this is so tragic. A lot of these sites that are about the medicinal uses of herbs, they point out that research is really non-existent. So they have to go back to pharmacological compendia of like the 19th century, like the specific indications listed in King's American Dispensary of 1898 were insomnia and nervous unrest, to allay spasm, control pain, and allay nervous excitability, migraine, and neuralgia. And neuralgia is nerve pain. So Jamaican dogwood has narcotic, analgesic, which is like painkilling, and soporific, which makes you sleepy. Properties of Jamaican dogwood were identified in 1844. Its chief use was for pain and to produce sleep, and it was recommended as a replacement for opium. The British Pharmaceutical Code of 1911 recommended Jamaican dogwood as narcotic that did not have the side effects of constipation or headaches of actual opium. It lacked the same power of opium, but it operates as a desirable analgesic painkiller, and really was a substitute for opium or morphine. And he said in 1953, Ochens wrote, quote, "The bark and wood of the root and stem of this West Indian tree have long been used by the natives of the Antilles as an analgesic," end quote. And that means painkiller. You can use it for chronic bronchitis, consumptive coughs, asthma, whooping coughs, promotes restful sleep. Again, they found that in 1915. And that's all great. But it also had an effect on reproduction. And so let's see what we've got. Insomnia, anxiety, musculoskeletal, reproductive system. The antispasmodic, meaning anti-cramping, and analgesic actions of Jamaican dogwood make it suited to dysmenorrhea. And there's a footnote here. And dysmenorrhea is like painful menstruation, or troublesome menstruation, like bleeding too much. In such cases, Jamaican dogwood combines well with valerian and cramp bark for acute relief. Menstrual cramps and menstrual headaches are likely to be rooted in a hormonal cause, which would need to be treated to correct the imbalance. And that can take several months. In the short term, Jamaican dogwood can acutely provide relief to the symptoms of dysmenorrhea. All right, so that is Jamaican dogwood. Now, there it is, the bottom of the bowl. Now we're going to go to pleurisy root. Where are we? Here's pleurisy root. So I'm going to hold it up. I'm just so fascinated by these herbs. Here's pleurisy root. Now, pleurisy, of course, is a 19th century word for the pleura are your lungs. So pleurisy is a disease, or any disease or weakness or infection of the lungs. So this is also quite, I'm going to hold it up even more so you can see it's quite, it's like little chunks of wood or little chips of wood. Another very barky, it's a root, right? And you can really see how the roots are different from from the herbs, from the leaves. It just becomes so fascinating to see how nature provided us with everything. I'm just stirring it together. What is up with pleurisy root? Well, really want to stress it's not safe for pregnant women, as it can cause uterine contractions even when taken in low doses, which could cause premature labor. It's also unsafe to use while breastfeeding. And do look up the potential side effects of using pleurisy root. You can do it on healthline.com because it could interact with heart medications or estrogen. Excuse me. Interestingly, pleurisy root has similar effects on the body as estrogen does. This is healthline.com. And it may interact and make estrogen less potent if you're taking estrogen pills. So it kind of acts like estrogen, but may make your estrogen pills artificial ones less effective. Here we go. It is said to stimulate the vagus nerve, which may promote perspiration, expectoration, which is spitting, like if you've got congestion, and bronchial dilation. Sweating is a good way to rid the body of toxins. So the root may be helpful for those who can't sweat through exercise. And this is, again, why it's in this formulation. It may relieve menstrual cramps. I'm adding a little more. The herb is said to have antispasmodic properties, which means it may make menstrual cramps less intense. Pleurisy root is thought to have emmenagogue properties, which means it may trigger blood flow to the pelvis and help jumpstart a late period. And that's really, really important. And here, I really hate these kind of like mainstream herbalist websites because they always use very guarded language, like it's said to do this, it may do that. But then if you click to the actual citation, you're looking at peer-reviewed research. There's so much of it backing up the efficacy of these herbs. So I'm looking at PubMed Central, and this is Biomedical Research 2018, Herbal Medicine for Oligomenorrhea and Amenorrhea, a systematic review of ancient and conventional medicine. And it's an overview of the herbal treatments of menstrual not bleeding at all, which again is a side effect of the mRNA injection for many thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of women, and excessive bleeding. So this is an overview of plants used to treat the cessation of periods. The results are, they looked at 198 emmenagogue medicinal plants, and 87 cases were specified to be more effective than the others in treating oligomenorrhea and amenorrhea. 12 studies were found, which had 8 plants investigated, and they have confirmed the results of some of the plants as an outline for future study. And so they make the case that these herbs can replace artificial hormones in like toning or easing the problems of no menstruation or excessive menstruation. So one of the herbs that they looked at is pleurisy root, and that's the citation on Healthline that shows that it has emmenagogue properties, so it triggers blood flow to the pelvis and helps to jumpstart a late period. By the way, I would just say blood flow to the pelvis is always, it's always important to have good blood flow to the pelvis for a lot of reasons. And that's, why I'm so interested in phrases like, uterine tonic, because having good circulation in the pelvis is good for all kinds of reproductive health and sexual health. Sexual response depends on good blood flow through the pelvis. And of course, getting your uterus ready to have a healthy pregnancy, let alone carrying a baby effectively, even though you don't want to use pleurisy root while you're carrying a baby, certainly depends on having really good blood flow to the pelvis. And again, that blood flow is exactly what these mRNA injections disrupt or damage altogether. So that's pleurisy root. Now let's go to black cohosh. Where is our black cohosh? Here's our black cohosh. And I'm going to lower this so you can see how our recipe is doing. Let's take a look. What is going on with our black cohosh? Now, I got this in Wyoming at a little store called the Hawthorne Tree. It's a wonderful store if you really want comprehensive herbal remedies and supplies. I really recommend that you take a look at the Hawthorne Tree in Wyoming. And oh wow, it smells so woody. And again, I think this is a bark, black cohosh, or a root. I'll have to take a look, but it's certainly not it's not a leaf. It's kind of browner than it's sort of almost chocolatey. And it has a very strong sort of woodsy, foresty smell. So this is what we've got going on right now. So let's look. I'm going to add a little more. This is 5.75 ounces. Again, not very expensive. It must have cost less than $30, and it's going to last and last and last. Black cohosh. Let's take a look at black cohosh. It's right here. So black cohosh, also Actia racemosa, is a North American herbal root widely used to alleviate menopausal symptoms such as hot flashes, night sweats, and vaginal dryness. Now, I have to acknowledge that we're at that point where we're publicly talking about vaginal lubrication, but I really want to talk about it because, and I've had an argument with Dr. Drew, whom I adore, about this, and also FDA, the head of the FDA, Marty Makary, because they were rolling out hormonal pharmaceutical, pharma treatments for menopausal symptoms such as vaginal dryness and other, treatable symptoms like hot flashes, night sweats, and mood swings. And there's so much there's so many studies showing that black cohosh eases these symptoms, and including vaginal lubrication. And how many women, who are getting older want to make sure that they're, always going to be having good sex with their husbands or partners, and satisfying sex, and having sufficient lubrication. So, and how many women are taking damaging, dangerous pharmaceutical hormones to produce something that these herbs have been known for hundreds of years to produce and take care of and balance hormones through menopause and after. And so I just think I don't want to say criminal because, I'm mad at Marty Makary, but I adore Dr. Drew, and he's always been open to an argument about it, which I really respect. But really, Marty Makary is not a woman. He's not gone through menopause. And I really think he has no business, saying, woo, take this. There are very serious side effects to hormonal, pharmacological hormonal replacement therapy, including like blood clots and, higher rates of some kinds of cancers. So I think if you can treat them with, herbs that have been around forever and ever that don't have those side effects, you really should consider it. Now, again, avoid this during pregnancy, please, or if you have liver conditions, all right? But this black cohosh is used for hot flashes, night sweats, heart palpitations, irritability, and sleep disturbances. Not only does it ease those symptoms for women going through menopause, but it also treats PMS and menstrual issues. And a lot of these herbs, interestingly, treat both. In the West, we have, this class of drugs for menstrual issues, and this class of drugs for perimenopause, and this class of drugs for menopause and postmenopause. It's all nonsense, in my view. We're women, and there are many phases of life to our uterine systems, our reproductive systems, but it's all about hormonal balance, right? And so that's what these herbs do. So I really want to note that that black cohosh does affect your hormone levels. So if you have any hormone sensitive conditions like breast cancer, endometriosis, or uterine fibroids, you should consult a healthcare professional before using it. Don't use it when you're pregnant or breastfeeding again. All right. But let's go back to what it does. There's some evidence that suggests that it may help with maintaining bone health. But its primary use is to ease and balance your hormones. It also treats PMS and anxiety. It's thought to work by influencing serotonin levels and having mild estrogen-like effects. It can have side effects like dizziness or nausea, so obviously discontinue it if you have any side effects like that. But it's been used forever and ever. And here's the National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health. It's a relative of the buttercup family. Native Americans used black cohosh for treatment of a variety of conditions, including kidney ailments, malaria, sore throat, and menstrual cramps. It's been used medicinally in Germany since the 19th century, and it is promoted as a dietary supplement for menopausal symptoms. It's also been used to promote other conditions, including treat other conditions, including menstrual cramps and PMS, and to induce labor. So in fact, the part of the black cohosh plant that we're using is the root or the rhizome. It's from underground. And there are a substantial number of studies that have evaluated black cohosh for menopause symptoms. A 2023 review of 22 studies of products containing black cohosh extracts found that they were potentially beneficial for overall menopausal symptoms. Data on specific symptoms showed improvements in hot flashes, and there it is. Black cohosh has been used safely in research studies that have lasted as long as a year, and it is generally well tolerated. So just keep that in mind. And right now you can still get black cohosh. The FDA doesn't outlaw it. I think you should try it if you're having any menopausal symptoms or dysmenorrhea type symptoms and see what you think. The beautiful thing about herbs is they're easy to take and easy to discontinue. All right, now we get into things that are really, really interesting. This is life root. It's a dietary supplement. It says fresh Appalachian extracts for the whole family. It's red moon herbs. Dosage is 30 drops. The herb strength ratio is 1:2, and it's made from the flowering tops of life root flower. Life root is one of the herbs that was added to the formula, but I think it's beneficial. Don't use it while you're pregnant or nursing. All right. Take 10 to 30 drops. So I'm just going to I was trying to figure out what's a good way to do this. And I'm just going to do a 3 droppers full, which is 30 drops right into the bowl here. And then we're going to make, stir it around and just kind of saturate the other roots with life root extract. That's what we're going to add. Life root. Oh my God. All right. That has a really strong smell. It's kind of tart. It's it's a tincture. So it's in alcohol. So it smells like alcohol. And it's also kind of earthy. It's got an earthy, almost a wine-like smell. All right. So let's take a look at life root. What does it do? Life root, Picara aurea, is a traditional North American herbal remedy historically used to support women's reproductive health, particularly for regulating menstrual cycles, easing menopausal symptoms, and acting as a uterine tonic. It was traditionally used to aid in childbirth, but be careful about that. Menstrual regulation, used in herbal medicine to treat irregular menses, meaning, not every 28 days, menstrual cramps, and related gynecologic disturbances. Also employed to manage symptoms associated with menopause. Reproductive health. This is a little gross, but you might want to know. Historically served as a female regulator for conditions like excessive vaginal discharge, also called leukorrhea. And so Catawba women used it as a tea to speed up labor and reduce pain, though they stress that this requires professional supervision. Don't use it when you're pregnant or nursing, and do, find out as much as you can about it, because obviously it has an effect. But a life fruit has a slender, erect stem that bears bright yellow flowers. The lower leaves are heart-shaped. It has played an important role in traditional American herbal medicine and was used as a tea by the Catawba women to hasten labor and reduce pain, as I mentioned. The plant has been used to treat a variety of illnesses, including hemorrhage and cough. It continues to be used in herbal preparations to control irregular menses and other gynecologic disturbances. And it's been used for the treatment of amenorrhea. So again, like the other herb, no menstrual cycle at all, menopause, and leukorrhea, vaginal discharge. It's also been used as a uterotonic, again, a tonic for the uterus, a diuretic, and a mild expectorant. Although it is widely believed that life fruit can influence activity of female reproductive organs, hence the name female regulator, they say there's little pharmacologic evidence of a uterotonic effect or influence on hormone levels in women. So that's life fruit. And I'm not going to kind of be dissuaded by conclusions which we see a lot in the scientific, kind of mainstream allopathic medicine of there's no evidence that it does this or there's no evidence that it does that, because as we have seen from the Pfizer papers and very, very often in the study or non-study of effective herbal remedies, Big Pharma finds what it wants to find and doesn't look for what it doesn't want to find. All right, so now we've only got 1, 2, 3 herbs left. So are you bearing with me? Let's see if we've got any comments. Interesting. I wonder if I'm being a tiny bit shadow banned, because there's very little comment and very small audience. I don't know, but if so, please share this video if you're moved by it manually. And Daniel Kahawai, my good friend, I love him. He always has a word of support for me. He says, Black cohosh, every woman's botanical friend. So obviously Daniel has heard all about that, and I appreciate that. So now let's go to dandelion. And dandelion is a later addition, but I'm a big fan of dandelion, as you know. And you probably know, because I've shown you, I harvest dandelion myself from my little half acre of lawn in the springtime. And then I dry it on a dining table, and then I save it and I use it. Wow. Oh my God, that's really strong. It's kind of very exciting smells are happening right now. And so this is a sort of gray brown, again, very woody. So I'm guessing, yeah, it's the root. So they dug these out, and rinsed them and dried them and processed them. This is the dandelion root. It's not the bloom or the leaf, which I also collect. I'm not patient enough to dig out the roots myself for the most part. But the root is probably where a lot of the beneficial activity is very concentrated. So let's see why dandelion root would be added to a tea to ease women's suffering. It is a bitter, nutrient-rich herb beneficial for women's health, primarily supporting liver detox, hormonal balance, and digestion. It is a diuretic, but again, dandelion root supports the liver in metabolizing excess hormones, which may help with PMS symptoms. Ladies, we've been there. Gentlemen, how many times has your wife or girlfriend nearly snapped your head off? Mood swings, irritability, and premenstrual acne. It helps with fluid retention and bloating, which none of us likes when we are having it. And it's generally considered safe. The dandelion tea benefits for women, also stress hormonal balance, an herbal ally. Why dandelion tea is so often recommended for women, because women's bodies are especially sensitive to, and this is myovacare.com, hormonal fluctuations, liver workload, blood sugar instability, chronic stress, and inflammation. And dandelion root supports several of these systems simultaneously, which is why it's historically been recommended during hormonally demanding life stages. I like that wording, including PMS, PCOS, perimenopause, and periods of stress. Importantly, it does not manipulate hormones directly. Instead, it supports the pathways that help hormones be processed, recycled, and cleared efficiently. So that's really cool and really important. You're just helping your body kind of metabolize and manage hormones and hormonal byproducts more effectively. So that's a very kind of holistic and natural way to treat hormonal balance. And of course, hormonal balance and imbalance is, Loki's just sitting there like staring up at me. It's very disconcerting. He's waiting for permission to sit on my lap. It's so sweet. You don't need permission, honey. Just jump on up. It is hormonal imbalance that causes the incredible irritability of PMS and also, menopause, from the report of many, many women. And I don't want to diminish this. I think I've seen it. I've seen how I really think these mRNA injections, but also toxins all around them, processed food, stress of modern life has led young women, especially in their 20s and early 30s in the West, to have completely unmanageable emotional responses to hormonal fluctuation. And they don't want to be like that, right? But they get overwhelmed. They get rage-filled. How many of you have seen a 20-something woman just completely lose her temper? They get short-tempered, and I don't want to say bitchy, but bitchy, snappish, impatient. They're not wanting to be that way. They can't help it. It's science. It's hormonal imbalance. And therefore, when you balance your hormones, when you're of childbearing age, and going through PMS and then, or maybe painful menstrual cycle, or when you're menopausal and postmenopausal, you're doing a beautiful thing for your relationships and for yourself, because it's no fun to be so at the mercy of those emotions and those chemicals, right? It really is chemicals. So this is another wonderful contribution from Daniel Kahawai, Healing Power of Herbs by Dr. John Heinemann, 100-page pocketbook, my source. That's a really great recommendation, Daniel. Thank you. So here we have the dandelion added. Now, the last two are coming up. We've got motherwort, and I did have to look around quite a bit to find motherwort. So I'm going to open it. I haven't opened it yet. I just bought it here in Brooklyn. I'm going to shake it out into the tea that we're creating and give it a good shake. And then I'll show it to you, everyone. So this is a kind of light beige color. It's sort of a straw color, and it's physically lighter, it's not as heavy. It's very straw-like, the motherwort. And this is what everything looks like at this point. And let me get my little jar ready for us to decant this when we're all done. So I've got a mason jar, and I'm doing this for a young woman who's of childbearing age, and she's suffering from various uterine problems and menstrual problems. And I promised her I would recreate this Lydia Pinkham's recipe for her, and we'll see how she does, and I'll report back. But again, if anyone's got young ladies, especially, or women going through menopause who want to reproduce this and try it and see how they do, or women suffering from excessive bleeding or no periods, irritability, try it. All of it is tryable, and then let us know how you're doing. So I'm going to hold up the motherwort herb. That's what it looks like. This was literally $10. Okay, and you can see that right there. Little window. I really like these packages. I really want to give a shout out to this herbalist. It's G&T African Products, or GT African Products, on Church Street in Brooklyn. Mr. Phillips is the proprietor, a wonderful, knowledgeable, traditional knower of traditional remedies. He can explain any herb, and it's very, very, very affordable. They've got a website, which I will post in the comments, but that's GT African Products on Church Street in Brooklyn. And it's Mr. Phillips, and use my name when you reach out to him. But literally, he gave me this giant package for $10 of motherwort. So, and motherwort was, again, not so easy to find. Let's see what motherwort does. What do you know? Menstrual support, known to relieve painful, delayed, or suppressed menstruation. It acts as an antispasmodic to reduce uterine cramping. And women are suffering so much, again, with that mRNA injection, from horrible cramping, horrible menstrual cramps. Menopause relief. It addresses symptoms such as anxiety, hot flashes, and heart palpitations, which also can relate to this sweating. Nervous system and calmness. It acts as a nervine to ease stress, restlessness, and anxiety-related issues. Postpartum and reproductive health. Traditionally used for postpartum pain relief. It helps restore uterine tone and is used for conditions like uterine fibroids. So very powerful support for women's reproductive health. Motherwort for women. And I just want to dial in a little bit more. And this is a website called herbalreality.com, which I really do like a lot. Motherwort is Leonurus cardiaca, and it is a calming and supportive reproductive remedy with modern relevance for reducing symptoms of anxiety and stress. And the traditional uses to support menstrual regularity and treat associated menstrual conditions in both Europe and China. Both species have similar medicinal and pharmacological uses. It has a reputation for improving mood and has been a consistent theme in pharmacological literature since the medieval era. The English herbalist Nicholas Culpeper considered motherwort useful for removing melancholy vapors, meaning depression, from the heart, improving cheerfulness, and settling the wombs of mothers. And there's a beautiful list of its actions understood in Western medicine, also Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine. Again, it's a nervine, it's an emmenagogue, which means it treats not having menses, and it is a uterine tonic. And this link explains that many uterine tonics also have anti-inflammatory, analgesic, meaning pain-killing, emmenagogue, meaning triggering blood flow and menstrual activity, or hormonal modulatory effects to further support reproductive health. And they give examples like Dong Quai, which I used to use when I was younger, and Schisandra and raspberry leaf, but also motherwort is right there as a uterine tonic, as I mentioned. And then lastly, we've got licorice. And you all are familiar with licorice as a candy, right? Or the candy version of licorice, which is probably much processed. Isn't that interesting? Loki really perked up when I took the licorice out. Now he does just like a good stick, but I wonder if he's reacting so much to the fact that it is a stick, or the fact that it has a very strong, I have to say, dog-like smell. Loki, I'm not going to give this to you because I don't know if it's good for you to chew on it. So you're going to have to accept it. But this doesn't smell anything like licorice, the candy, or the tea. It's really bitter. Oh my God. It almost smells like, honestly, it smells like donkey dung. I'm sorry, it does. Maybe that's why Loki's so engaged with it. It really smells like poop. That's really true. but it's really good for you. And I'm going to have to process this separately, but I'm going to have to break it up into smaller pieces or cut it into smaller pieces because it's completely unprocessed, right? And in order to make a tea out of it, I'm going to have to really like bang it up and cut it up, or saw it in pieces after this video. But here you see it like added to mix, although it's in giant chunks. So I will de-chunkify it after this podcast is over. But what does licorice root do? During menopause, dropping estrogen levels lead to uncomfortable symptoms such as hot flashes. In several studies, menopausal women given licorice supplements reported a reduction in hot flash severity or duration. And this is drbrighton.com, licorice root benefits. And so the headline is Licorice Root Effects on Estrogen. Many compounds found in licorice root are also estrogenic and can activate estrogen receptors in the body. One interesting study looked at a compound called liquiritigenin and found that its estrogenic properties had the added benefit of selectively triggering beta estrogen receptors without stimulating the alpha estrogen receptors that are linked to increased breast tumor formation. And so those researchers believe that further experiments with liquiritigenin could lead to a safer alternative to traditional estradiol hormone therapy for treating menopause symptoms. And it's estradiol that I'm so angry about, because that's what Dr. Makari was touting as a be-all and end-all for women suffering from hormonal symptoms. A separate study looked specifically at the impacts of another licorice compound, isoliquiritigenin, which instead reduces estrogen. Researchers found that exposure of ovarian follicle cells to that actually leads to a decrease in the expression of the genes needed to produce sex hormones. It's possible that in reproductive organs, this reduction in estrogen could have impacts on fertility. So there's more research to be done there. Licorice root for PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, which I'm hearing a lot of women are suffering from. Research reports that licorice root can help balance irregular ovarian follicles and decrease ovarian cysts. So I'm going to say ovarian health is so important right now because those damn mRNA injections, the lipid nanoparticles block ovaries. So everything you can do to support your ovaries, whether you're trying to get pregnant or just trying to menstruate in a healthy way, you should do, especially if you're vaccinated. And I'm not a medical doctor, so take that for my subjective opinion. Studies also show that in women, licorice can reduce testosterone production from the adrenal glands and help improve the anti-androgen effects of other PCOS treatments like spironolactone while minimizing side effects. It had protective effects when it came to breast cancer. Exposure of breast cancer cells in the labs to this antioxidant inhibited further cancer growth and increased apoptosis, cell death among cancerous cells. This drives me crazy because I see this so many times, that sentence, oh, this kills cancer cells or protects from cancer proliferation. So licorice is yet another root that does that. It's good for your adrenals, soothes sore throats, prevents cavities, indigestion, gastric ulcers, good for your skin. How to use it. It can be taken as an herbal tea, tincture, powder, or used in candies or lozenges. And the precautions are avoid licorice or talk to your doctor if you take diuretics, corticosteroids, or medications for blood pressure or cholesterol. Don't take it during pregnancy, all right, or breastfeeding. It's always fascinating, they say, to find a natural compound with so many incredible uses. And that explains why licorice root has been added to the mix. All right, you guys, our assortment is done. I'm going to take the licorice sticks out to add them after the podcast in a more pulverized form. But I'm just going to show you, I don't know if I'm going to do this in front of you because I don't want to make a giant mess, but I'm just going to pour this beautiful set of herbs and roots, really mostly roots or all roots, with one tincture that we've created into this jar. And that's it. And I'm going to fill it up, and I'm going to wrap it in a beautiful tissue and put it in a little gift bag and give it to my young friend who's suffering so much. And she can, well, I often say this with herbs and roots, it's not enough just to like put them in your teapot. Sorry. And it's really not enough to buy them ready-made, although it's very convenient, it's better than nothing, made it, put into tea bags and steep them for 3 minutes in your hot water in a tea bag. That's not good enough. I'm sorry. You really have to simmer them and then strain them. And I'm going to give her a strainer too, because a lot of people don't have a strainer. But you just whack it into water in a pan. Try to avoid aluminum pans. Try to make it like stainless steel or enamel, and simmer it for 15 minutes. And then take your strainer, pour the water through the strainer. It'll keep the solids in the strainer. And then, it's probably going to taste bad. It's not going to taste great. It's probably going to taste somewhat medicinal or somewhat woody. I don't know. I'm interested in trying it, even though I'm not having any of those symptoms. But you can add honey. Yeah, it's got a bitter smell. It's not going to be fabulously fun to drink, but it's going to be very effective to drink. So that we have now recreated, leaving out one ingredient, which is unicorn or false unicorn root. And that is a mystery ingredient because they're not making it anymore. And they claim that it's because it's endangered. So it's almost impossible to find unicorn root. And I do have false unicorn root, but until I know more about it, I'm not going to add the false unicorn root because it may not be the same as the unicorn root. But this is like an incredibly powerful herb and part of the original Lydia Pinkham's recipe, which has just vanished from the pharmacopoeia. Again, allegedly, because maybe really truly because it's endangered, but I've never seen any root not being produced and marketed because it was endangered. I mean, maybe that happens, but I don't think it happens without some kind of like legal intervention. And how mysterious it's called unicorn root. I mean, I love the names involved in this, like life root, unicorn root, false unicorn root, motherwort, right? These are so rich and poetic. There we have it. I'm going to fill it. I'm going to fill it up to the brim. I'm going to shake it up. I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to put the lid on it and make it pretty and give it to my suffering young friend. And we'll see how she does and we'll report back. Do you have any questions or comments? I literally can't see any questions or comments from you. I'm sorry, you guys. That was me having a technical glitch. I don't know if you heard me when I locked myself out of the studio just now, but I'm going to give this to my young friend and make her feel as good and hopeful about it as possible because, it's not just the emotional, the physical pain that our young women and our menopausal women go through. It is psychological pain because who wants to feel terrible about being a woman? Nobody. Who wants to suffer? Who wants to bleed, excessively? Who wants to not have a period at all with all the anxiety that can cause? Thinking you're pregnant, not knowing if you're pregnant. Excuse me. Who wants to have the menopausal symptoms that women are expected in the West to suffer from? Just so crazy. And then they invented and marketed this whole new life stage, perimenopause, which no one had heard of it when I was, coming of age. It's a whole new thing with new branding and new products and new, websites to practices, treatments to sell. It's all nonsense. I don't want to, how can I put this? I never want to sound smug, but I've avoided pharmaceutical interventions, hormonal interventions my whole life, tried to be as natural as I could, not nearly as natural as I should have been, because I didn't know until the last couple of years, what herbs did, and I didn't acquire any knowledge of them until recently. Or I didn't understand how bad things like, deodorant and I mean, over-the-counter deodorant. I don't mean that I'm a smelly person, but over-the-counter drugstore deodorant or drugstore makeup or drugstore hair products, were, and how they were like saturating us in chemicals. But I guess what I just want to say is the horrible suffering that women are going through, the more I don't put chemicals in my body, the less I ever suffer as a woman. Let's put it that way. And I know that's true for many, many women. And so the damage is done for a lot of our young women. They've taken this injection, they were forced to, or they were lied to, or they were coerced. And now they, thank you, Daniel, got a compliment. Now they are in a lot of pain, and a lot of older women going through menopause are suffering. It's time to end their suffering. So that's why I did this project. I am 63. No surgery, no fillers, no nothing. And I feel great. And, I have some health issues that I was born with. So I feel especially great that living as naturally as I can, and especially this knowledge of herbs that I'm acquiring, is giving me good health in spite of it, serious neurological condition I was born with. So I just want to share that. I'm going to stop now. I'm sure you have lots of comments and questions, but I'm not seeing them, so I can't respond to them, except for this wonderful man, Daniel, saying, God bless you, friend, which I appreciate. God bless you back. And I'm going to sign off for now. I want to always thank our wonderful sponsor, American Alternative Assets. You really need to not only educate yourself about herbs so you can stay out of the clutches of big pharma, but by the same token, educate yourself about gold and silver so you can protect yourself from central bank digital currency, from the vagaries of the market, from inflation, from all the things you're not being told about that affect your savings. I think it's very, very, very important to diversify your savings, your retirement account in these times that are so unstable, when people like China and central banks around the world are buying up gold. If Brian and I had invested in gold 5 years ago when we first started talking about it, our investment would have nearly quintupled. And American Alternative Assets has a brochure which is explaining that they are looking at $10,000 an ounce gold. Gold is going up. JP Morgan Chase says 25%. Other banks are saying 20%. And there's a limited amount of it. There's never going to be more gold, whereas there are more and more people on the planet. So it's also protected from the kind of political interference, central bank interventions in the market that affect our savings when all of our savings are in the stock market or mutual funds. So please consider American Alternative Assets. There's a lot of shady, sketchy companies out there selling gold and silver. They are a really reputable company, very accountable, very responsive. They explain, everything you need to know. So please go to cloutgold.com. That's CLOUTGOLD.com, and go ahead and get your free brochure explaining gold, the case for $10,000 gold. And go ahead and call them and ask questions, any questions you want. And please consider getting started diversifying your savings, protecting yourself and your family as much as possible by reaching out to our friends at American Alternative Assets. And again, that's cloutgold.com. www.thepinkhams.com. Thank you for joining me, everyone. Let me know if you found this useful. And again, it takes a lot to put these videos and essays together. It really does. It takes a lot of research. I've been all over Brooklyn. It takes a lot of work, and we have a team as well bringing you this content. So we need your help, and we need your support, and we need you to help us keep doing it. Please subscribe if you possibly can. Become a paid subscriber over on Substack to Outspoken, and over at dailyclout.io. That's our website. You can subscribe, or you can make a one-time donation. And you can also subscribe to BillCam and Legisector, so you can find out what upcoming bills are, change them, act on them, not be at the mercy of state or federal legislation. We brought you those tools, but we really need your support to keep doing it. Thank you. I love you. Let me know how it goes. All right, you guys, Lydia Pinkham's secret recipe.